Hi, everybody. It's Zane with Sailing Views, and I have Travis Odenback with me. And I'm sorry if I'm laughing, but this is the second time I've done this today, and that's the record button is kicked off somehow, and I've screwed up the interview. So I have to apologize to Travis right from the get go. But since you guys don't know what I'm talking about, this is Travis Odenbach, sailmaker, sail salesman for Quantum Sales. And if you don't know who he is, then you haven't been in a J24 or a J22, a J70, or any J boats in a while, because this guy's been winning everything in every class for a number of years. So with that, how you doing, Travis? And sorry for my earlier mistakes.
Doing well, Zane. Thanks for having me. It's pretty funny. Let's see if I can answer the questions the same way I did before. So
Yeah.
we're hoping for different answers this time, probably.
Yeah. Well, I did the same thing with Laura Dahlman Weiss a little while ago. Same damn thing. So, like I say, I'm having issues today. All right. So let's start with the normal question. When did you get started sailing, and how did that happen? How did you get started?
Yeah. So I got started here in Rochester, New York, with pretty much my family. They had a CNC 37R. And we did a lot of perf sailing around Lake Ontario, some stuff in Lake Erie. And I grew up kind of sitting in the cockpit there, just watching and learning. And it wasn't until I was 10 or 11 that I really started doing the junior program here in Rochester. And then, the rest is history. After junior program, it was lasers and bites and stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, how did your bites and lasers and little boat stuff go? I mean, were you good at that, or were you just sort of figuring it out? Since you've been on big boats, most people have a hard time making that transition one way or the other. So,
yeah, I mean, the big boat thing, I think to get off the big boat, that was the whole reason in getting into junior sailing, is so that I could actually drive, because I knew I was never going to leave the bow if I didn't get off the big boat.
mm-hmm.
But, I wasn't any good at small boat sailing in my early teens and early years. I got better as I got older in my later teens and into the bites and lasers. Still nothing spectacular. That kind of stuff didn't change until like college or a little bit after college. Sailing's one of those sports. You got to put the time in. And if you don't have all the coaches in the world, you're only going to learn it on your own, and it can take some time. So,
Yeah. I never had coaches, so I always did my first, I joined this junior program called Team Alira based out of Texas. And up till then, I'd never had any coaching. And even then, that was more of we had some coaches, but it was mainly just mentorship. It was a bunch of really good sailing juniors, and we just beat each other to death and pushed each other until suddenly we're pretty good. Right. So, that ramped everything up. But I never got a coach an official coach, till I finally made the U.S. sailing team. And they're like, here's a coach. And I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do? All right. Well, let's move on to that, to the next question, which is, who were some of your early influences? Coming out of Rochester, I'm sure you had some great sailors or somebody to.
Yeah. I think the biggest influence I have in sailing is my grandfather. He was super into it. He was one of these guys when he was 22, he got his own boat. He's never sailed in his life, and he just went out and got like this wooden boat. And it's actually in Newport today. It's called Amarita. It's one of his first boats. And then, my uncles, they've sailed through the soling fleets and, obviously did the big boat stuff around here in the lakes, and just really, we had a lot of fun doing it back then. It wasn't as competitive as it is now for me, and I'm a super competitive person, but it was just really fun. So I wanted the fun side of it first, and I think that's why I was so late to the game of being good at it.
Yeah.
But it was great. Those guys are probably the biggest mentors I had when I was super young growing up.
Yeah. Well, that's very cool. My grandfather was he raced motorboats, and then my dad. Of course, if you listen to my dad, he's the best sailor that's ever walked the face of the planet. So, I don't know where I get my humbleness from, but it couldn't be from him. So, all right. So, at what age did you think you were good? Like you said you're not the best junior sailor. Well, when did you have that aha moment of, holy cow, I'm pretty good?
Yeah. I don't know if I've had the aha moment yet, but I would say where it started to click and I started to understand, I think the biggest thing for junior sailors and younger people is not understanding rig tuning and sail setup and all of a sudden putting the whole game with the bottom and all that stuff together. And that happened after I moved to Newport. A couple of guys like Will Harris, they got me out there saying, "Hey, go be a boat builder, live in Newport. This will be your grad school, call it. This is where you really go to learn how to sail." And I think I started sailing a ton Thursday nights. We talked about this. I had the team that I had. Dunes threw me with Brad Reed, Anthony Katoon, Will Wells, and himself, Dunes, and they pretty much told me I had to drink a beer before every lay line, and if I messed up, I had to drink a beer again. So I never really remembered how to be good, but I knew these guys were really good, so I was going to retain something. So that moved on from there, and I think I won my first event after that, and thought maybe I got a shot at doing this.
Yeah, and like you said, that group you sailed with on your little afternoon beer can races, that's a pretty good group to cut your teeth with, and yeah, that's a good group. All right, so what is your favorite boat? I know you sail a ton of different boats, so which one's your favorite?
Yeah. Yeah, God, I mean, between all the different boats, the Vipers and the 70s and the 24s, my style of sailing really honed in on the traditional spinnaker side of things. But I also really liked, I was a little too young for the soling side of things. So the J22 was the next obvious thing for us here. And it was really cool because I could do it with two of my good buddies. And obviously it's a little inexpensive and easy kind of to figure out the tuning and everything. But the boat sails out of J boats. It sails amazing, and trailers, it gets together pretty easily. And the class itself is super laid back, and there's been a lot of good guys that came from it. So I would say that probably, if you told me tomorrow I got to go sail J22s, I'd be pretty excited about it.
All right. Well, good. You got 3 weeks, and you're sailing J22s over here. So,
there we go.
Well, I'll talk to you about that soon. All right. So let's move on to something else. Where's your favorite place to sail?
Okay. Favorite place to sail. We talked about the J22 being my favorite boat. I think that the J24 class is giving me the most international experience. And so internationally, I would say Lake Garda is by far my favorite place to sail. We talked about it being a one-sided racetrack, but at the same time, the views that you get there, the people, the food. I mean, I've been a lot of places, and that one tops them all for me for a one design sailor.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. One-sided racetracks are always fun and challenging because you know where you got to go, but sometimes you just can't get there.
Yeah.
So with that, what's one of your best moments in sailing? I mean, have you ever had any really great maneuvers and great moments that just jump out at you?
Yeah, I think the greatest maneuver was also done at that regatta at the Worlds in Lake Garda. I think the starting ability that I had that week. I mean, we didn't finish as well as we've done at other regattas that I've started really well at. I think we ended up fourth, which is still really well. But the starting maneuver that we had there was, I learned really quickly after the first two races how everybody was doing this, and it was like you have to tack and get on port tack and hopefully cross the majority of the fleet within 2-3 minutes after that start. So I learned about being really high on the line and kind of judging, making sure my turn is going to happen before everybody else, and I'm going to be on port pretty darn quickly because the majority of the boats are going to go with you. It's those one few stragglers that don't. But we tacked on the port on one of those races, and I think it was the third race of the event, and we cleared 100 boats in a matter of 3 minutes. And after that, I just looked at it and said, okay, I can do this. This is going to be a lot of fun. I just figured out how this is all going to work. And that has to be kind of the greatest moment that I figured out in a 100-boat fleet, that you can tack onto port and cross the whole fleet. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, did you do that any more in that event, or just that one good time, or?
Probably the next 4 races, because that was the only thing you could do. But you had to figure, you couldn't do it next to the same guy twice, though. You had to pick another guy.
Yeah, I understand that. All right, well, let's move to a slightly different question. But what's your worst event, or worst regatta, or something, just you wish you stayed home?
Yeah, yeah. So there's 50% of the regattas that I probably wish I stayed home, because if you're not winning, then
Eh,
it's not fun, right? That's what they tell you. But no,
yeah.
I've had a lot of bad regattas in my life, and I would say one of the regattas that I had a really good regatta that sticks out in my head is 2013 J24 Worlds in Ireland, Hoth Yacht Club. Awesome yacht club, awesome people. I think we had 60 boats. It was a very cool venue. It was actually really flat water, shifty. We ended up going in the last day winning by six, or we were leading by 6 points. And the last race, or probably second last race, Rossi, Malev, and I looked at each other, and I kind of made the call, and I felt bad for him because this is going to be all of our first worlds that we win, and I was like, oh, the wind's going to die, so let's go with the Genoa. No one else is going with the Genoa. It's only blowing 18 right now, and if the wind does die to 15, we've been so fast all week. We're just going to win the race. It's going to be great. Well, it piped up to about 30 knots, and I watched the whole fleet go across me as I went sideways up the first beat. And, the rest is history. I think third, but that one, it's like the one that got away, right? It would have been pretty cool to take that. So
Yeah.
it's got to be, that's one sticks in my head the most, is I can't get it out of there.
Yeah, that one hurts. And similar to the last interview, that is the perfect segue into, are you aggressive, are you conservative, or what have you learned about that, because of
Yeah.
an event like that?
Yeah, I think growing up, or at least in my late 20s and even early 30s, now that I'm 36, which is crazy, but I was pretty aggressive. A lot of the worlds that we were at, you always had mathematically, you always looked at it like you had a shot on the last day, and so you always chase after another boat, trying to get that extra point, or maybe have them mess up for another boat, something like that. And I found that I would drop places. So as time went on, I think I've become more conservative. I've also sailed with really good people who are handling that decision for me, but certainly I can see the conservative side of it, because my starts aren't as great, or I'll win a regatta, but I'll also get a 10th next week. So the aggressiveness, I think, can string you up a couple of wins, but it can also string some bad luck in there. So I've tried to be a little more conservative, and I certainly like the aggressive style a little more, but I know conservative is probably where I want to stay for the next few years.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
answers that.
That does answer that. And, I've in our previous interview that didn't get taped, I told you some stories about some of the stuff I've done in setting up maneuvers, but I can tell you, being aggressive sometimes pays, but I've been hung out to dry more than you'll ever know because of being aggressive. Uh, I can't even remember the story I told you on the last interview, but I did a regatta racing against every big rock star in the world, and I'm going out and I'm, all internationals. You got Scheidt, Tan Scheidt, Lovell, Bordeaux, Hamish Pepper, all these guys, and we're sailing lasers. And I go out and I run off a string of top threes, top twos, and I'm like, okay, I've got like 4 top 5 finishes. I'm killing it. I'm crushing the regatta. And then the next day comes along, and I keep the same aggressiveness up, but the wind had changed a little bit. That aggressiveness and me thinking I could get to that side and do what I did yesterday didn't work. And that day ended up with me a lot of 40s and 50s. I went so fast down that leaderboard from having a 15-point lead down to, okay, I'm lucky to be in 18th place again. How did this happen in 3 races? It's just being stupid and aggressive. So I don't know, man.
It's a marathon.
Yeah, and sometimes I don't remember it, and a lot of people do, and I know obviously you're learning that as well. So, this the beauty of sailing, just figuring things out.
Yeah.
All right. So, what's your favorite project or program you've been involved in?
Yeah. So my favorite program that I've been involved with quite a few, and a lot of fun with family, a lot of fun with back in the day I did some FAR 40 stuff. But I would say it's the newest program that I have going right now with Dave Giannetti. Dave has a J70. He took 12 years off of sailing, and he got back into it, and he wanted to do it the right way in his mind, and that was, make sure the boat is perfect, make sure we have people to take care of the boat, people to sail the boat, make sure we have good sails. And so we've really done a lot of work with him in the J70 to finally hone in on those J70 sails, which is just awesome that it all came together. But to watch him come out of a 12-year hiatus, and I can remember sailing. We had Andy Horton. I was trimming, and Danny Lawless was on the boat, like one of our first Miami events with Dave, and we won the second race. And Dave was so pumped that we won. He was like, "I've never been, higher than mid-fleet," I think he said, or a couple better than that. And we won a race, and that was in the first 3 regattas we did. And right there, he was hooked. We were hooked with sailing with him. And ever since that, we've just been building on it. It's been really, really fun. So I'm kind of hoping we get back to this sooner than later. But he's an awesome guy, and I'm hoping he's going to be around for a while doing this.
Yeah, what's the name of that boat?
That boat is called Very Odd 1513.
Yep.
So, and then he's got another J70 called it's 153 called Slightly Odd.
Okay, that's great to know. All right, so let's see here. Let's move on to something a little different. America's Cup. What are your thoughts on it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you like the foiling? Do you love this new technology, or are you one of the traditionals that says kick it back to old school?
Oh, I'm not going to be politically correct on this. Do I love it? I don't love it. I think it's very cool. And I think that the America's Cup has always been that race that you must go forward in innovation with it, because it will have a trickle-down effect later to the rest of us. And so I agree with what they're doing. Do I personally wish that they would be back in the 2007 America's Cup? Yeah. I think a lot of us would not only love to see that, because I think that one-on-one match racing is just the best to watch as a sailor. But I also think a lot of my friends would have a better chance to get on one of the boats if it was, a 15-man team on a boat still. Mm-hmm. So that aspect of it, yeah, I wish it was older, but I do agree that it's always been the innovative part of our industry, and they should keep going as far as they can. The machine, they're pretty badass machines. Yeah. So it's been pretty cool to watch them come up with the foils, and it's pretty interesting. So. Yeah.
I mean, I'm right there with you. I'm blown away by the technology, and I feel like the technology, just they're the ones that are going to push it. They're the F1 cars. So let them go do their thing. But I also like the old days of the 12 meters of the IACCs or whatever they were. I love the match racing, and I think to me, the more of a craftsman in the sailing, the more honed you are at the small little details, you don't mind them going upwind for 20 minutes and just watching the 2-minute puffs and watching it play out, and the match racing before. I love that. I eat that stuff up. But
I think it was it 2 years ago where they were showing the Congressional Cup live or whatever on YouTube, and they're in those Catalina 37s.
Yeah.
That was some of the most unbelievable match racing to watch. I think I had more fun watching that than the foiling, but obviously I knew a lot of guys out there, but it was pretty intense, the amount of circling, the amount of lineups they had. It was pretty awesome to watch still.
Yeah. Yeah. I always try to tune in for live match racing and boats like that. I think it's amazing. So, all right. Well, with that, let's move on to the next one. What are your future plans in sailing, or what future things are coming up for you, or do you know yet?
That's a good question. I had a future in sailing, kind of evaporated. I was getting ready for the J70 Worlds. We were getting ready for J24 Worlds this year. Those are both kind of canceled, but they're not really canceled. They're postponed. So obviously, I'm going to sail with Dave moving forward in the J70, and then for my kind of sailing, I'm looking forward to next year Still getting at those events, J70 and the J24 Worlds next year. Something I think you'll like, though, is that we have the Laser Great Lakes this year in Rochester in September. And, if there was ever any social distancing, I think the laser class would be one of the only ones that could do it. So
Yeah.
I've actually got myself a laser, and I'm going to start training a little bit to do that. And it'll be my little early life crisis here, getting back into that boat. So that's what I got this year.
There you go. Every now and then I'll jump in and coach some kids for a weekend or something. And of course, back in the old day, I was one of the best tacks and jibes. I'd work that down to an art. And so I jump in the boat and I try to explain to these kids, and they just don't get the extra shoulder pop. So I jump in a boat, and of course, their boats are a little older, and I'm ripping. I'm heavier, so I'm ripping hiking straps out of the boat, jamming the tiller, breaking the traveler eyes, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just destroying this kid's boat while I'm just trying to do a simple roll tack. It's like, okay, stop, get out, no more, no, yeah. Anyway, all right, so let's move on to the next thing. Where is the sport of sailing right now? What can we do to improve it?
Oh, well, it's interesting. There's lots of pockets of sailing, in my opinion. Different styles out there. I actually think there's kind of a split right now in the sport of sailing, where you've got the pros and the people that want the pros, and then you've got the people that still love the fun-loving, have a beer, go sailing for a couple hours, and then come in. And when I look at it, those are the guys that make up the sport, because there's a lot more of the fun-loving beer can races than there are of the let's go just race pro style, right? So the future of sailing depends on how much attention is given to the clubs, the Wednesday night racing, the Tuesday night racing. And if you look at the silver lining of what we're going through right now, is that I think there's going to be a lot of clubs that are rejuvenated with some different style sailing, but fun sailing coming up, on your Wednesdays and Tuesdays. So, getting back to the club stuff and making it fun for everybody is great. We talk about junior sailing, obviously getting juniors into it. What kind of boats, do you go fancier? Do you not, foiling, no foiling? But I really think it starts with making sure their father and mother and brothers enjoy it and hand down the enjoyment of it. So it'll be interesting this year to see. I think you'll see an uptick in club sailing, and I think people will actually be rejuvenated to go sailing at the end of this.
Yeah.
So that's my guess, but that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. My guess is now this probably won't air for about another 2.5 weeks, but at this moment right now, sailing, I feel like this, we're getting closer to lifting, all the bans, and people can start sailing and racing. And I think this first couple regattas, this first couple months when it does completely open up, I think those little local regattas are just going to be slammed and actually busier, because people are just, dear God, get all of our friends together. Let's go sailing and have some fun.
Right.
And I think there's going to be a big push in that. How it evolves from there, I don't know, but hopefully it just gets people back. So we will see.
Yeah.
All right. What are your thoughts on women's sailing? Do you think there's anything we can do better to make it better, or what's your view on it?
Yeah, I think there's things we can always do. I think there's been some good things in the past. I know Corey Sertle really well, the U.S. sailing president, and she was a real big part of getting women into this sport even more than they are. And it's been pretty awesome to see. I think at the collegiate level, they're doing a really good job. I have a cousin, Ava Esquier. She's done a really good job at UPenn and put a whole team together. So, I mean, the women are the ones that are pushing the sport in the younger generation right now. The guys are out, they're doing whatever they want to do, and the women are like organized and doing it. So I think the younger generation is probably going to take that over. The one thing that we miss is that Rolex keelboat regatta from back when they used to use J22s. I think they did J24s,
24s, yeah.
22s. And I just remember that was on the back end of that. And they had like 60 teams come to Rochester And then the next year they went to California or they went over to the Netherlands. And then they came back to Rochester and it was the same 60 teams, but 60 teams with 4 women on a boat. It was a sight to see just because here it is. Everybody thinks it's a men's driven sport. Well, these women are more organized, they're better, and they're more focused than we are. And it was an awesome thing to see. We don't have that right now. I don't see it. I think they talked about it for the J70, but I haven't really seen a massive, 60 boat fleet go out there yet. So, getting back to something like that, the women's regatta, the Rolex regatta, whatever they want to, get a sponsor would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah. In talks while doing these videos, I've talked to a lot of women, a lot of, men, a lot of different people. And one thing is there's always a lot of good, A and B skippers in college, and especially in the female division. And then some of them that make the crossover into the co-ed, and they're just as good as the guys. And a lot of the problem that everyone is pointing out, or a lot of people are pointing out, is once they get out of college and they get into big boats, they just get pushed to the front and they never see a tiller again. I think I'm going to actually change up my program a little bit and say, okay, instead of having a 110-pound bow girl, I'm going to have a 110-pound driver. And I like to think I'm a pretty darn good driver and I can do things others can't, but I also know that I'm useful elsewhere. I'm a pretty solid tactician, pretty solid trimmer. I've been paid to do all of those jobs, so I figure, I can jump anywhere. And if you got some young girl that can drive just as well as I can, let her do it and let her get the experience. Plus, we just need more women driving. Period. So
yeah. Well, driving, trimming. I mean, any of those focus points where it requires long focus. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's proven that women can focus a lot longer than men, and I think that they should be in those jobs. I mean, everything is a touch of the finger. It doesn't take a ton of muscle in a lot of the boats that I sail to do some of those jobs. And in the bigger boats, I mean, you're getting bigger winches. The loads, aren't there. So if you're talking about strength wise, I don't think that's an excuse right now. I mean, you look at the focus that women have in the Olympics and everything. It's more than we do, and it'd be really interesting to see where it goes in the next few years. That's for sure.
Yeah. On big boats, I was a big boat trimmer for years, and it's not hard to be a trimmer. You got a guy turning the winch for you. All you got to do is tail it, and you're easing. Yep. You're basically easing most of the time, and then a little pull while the winch constantly turns. So, like I say, we got to do better. All right, so let's move on to how do we grow the sport of sailing? I mean, you got any good ideas or anything that jumps out at you?
Yeah, it's a tough one. You get into that loop of, is it too expensive? Is it not too expensive?
Oh, it's always too expensive. I can tell you that.
It's always too expensive. But I'm finding that pretty much everything that I want to do, I make it too expensive for some reason. Riding a bike or whatever it is. But I think the biggest thing is how do you get to outreach programs to people that don't have the opportunity? I mean, geez, we can give all the opportunity we want to the kids that are growing up at the yacht club, but if for some reason they don't take to it, they're still not going to go sailing. So how about the people that don't get the opportunity? And I think the one group that does that really well is Sail Newport. I think they bring in other high schools and stuff that don't really have sailing teams, but it's almost like a phys ed program or whatever they got going on, but they bring in kids, they let them go sail on the 22s with a trainer. It's getting people from outside areas that don't have access to water all the time or that haven't had the opportunity to do it, to get into it, because you pull people that weren't even thinking it. We're focused on a group that's thinking about it already. We're focused on kids that are growing up because their parents are at the yacht club. And I'm one of 15 cousins and brothers and sisters that was at the yacht club. And there's 3 of us that sail, 1 of us that sails professionally out of the 15. None of them sail at all. So that they had all the opportunity in the world. So I think, these outreach programs are pretty cool, and Sail Newport does a pretty good job at that.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So that's definitely a good way to start things up. All right. You know what? You kind of just killed both of my new questions, both the questions at once. I was looking at my next question going, thanks, Travis. You just rendered this list useless
Come on,
now.
what was the question? I can answer it again. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, the first one was, do you have any ideas on how to grow the sport? Well, the next one is best advice. And I think you just hammered both of them at once. So, but.
I don't have any good advice.
Yeah. So, all right, let's go into this little story mode here because, your time's about right, but I want about 2 or 3 more minutes with you.
Okay.
Tell me a good story, man. Something from a Worlds or a regatta, just something really fun.
Oh boy.
But I'm putting you on the spot. I haven't done this with anybody yet, but I'm putting you on the spot. Tell me a good story.
All right. Okay. So the Ireland J24 regatta. A lot of people know I was a pretty good time back in my 20s. So we got to the regatta. This is how it started out. I had Josh Putnam doing bow, and I brought my spinnaker pole over, and we had this little squished van. And the first day, I put the spinnaker pole, and it fits like to a T inside this van. And I tell Josh as I walk away, I go, Josh, just remember the spinnaker pole's there, so when you shut it, you got to do it like carefully. And the first thing I hear is like, and it goes through the front windshield a little bit. And we're kind of late because I really wanted to see the boat and I really wanted to get racing. And I was like, whatever. I got insurance on the car. Let's just get to the regatta. So by the end of that regatta, we were tamed during the middle of it. And, going out to the last day, I said, oh boy, it's either going to be a really fun party or a really bad party tonight. And unfortunately, it was a really bad party. And the next day I can remember Jimmy Barnash waking me up and saying, Trev, we have 40 minutes to get on our flight. So we drove the van. Jimmy drove the van because I was in no shape. We drove the van to the airport, and the Hertz rent-a-car place was like 30 minutes from the airport. We didn't have any time for it. So we left the rent-a-car in the departures. We called him and said, you got to pick the rent-a-car up at departures. We're late for our flight. So that's probably the best story I have that I can share without getting too crazy. So
Yeah.
it was pretty funny.
Yeah, and by the way, you got a busted out window or a cracked back window. By this, all the windows are busted out.
So if you ever need to rent a car in Ireland, I probably have one there for you.
All right. Well, that is very good. Okay, well, do you have anything else to add to this video other than that excellent story?
No, Zane, you're awesome, man. You keep doing these because they're a lot of fun. They're not serious. They're laid back, and it gets us talking about sailing. So thank you for it.
Yep, you got it, man. That's the game plan. Just reconnecting with people or connecting with people I haven't gotten to see and haven't gotten to talk to. So I think this is the great little format for that, and I plan to keep it going. So with that, everybody, this is Zane from Sailing Views. I want to thank Travis Odenback, Quantum Sales. So call him up if you need J-Boat sales. And don't forget, if you need any other sales, you can call me. So with that, I'm going to let you go. And don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe. I'm trying to get more subscribers, help this thing go. So that's it. Over, out, and bye-bye.
Thanks, Zane.
Yep.